Xbox earnings are in. It tells us a lot, but there's also a lot missing too. Late yesterday, Microsoft released their earnings, and by all accounts, they hit it out of the park. We're not going to dig through all the earnings, mostly going to focus on Xbox. If you want to hear more about the earnings, I'll have a video up on Friday that dives much deeper. But as I've done with each quarter recently, we're going to dive into the Xbox specific information, mostly because they just launched a console late last year, and they're going through a big transformational shift with going to Game Pass. And so there's a lot of numbers here that Microsoft threw out. Unfortunately, as we'll talk about here at the end, they didn't give us the numbers we really actually want. But overall, things appear to be pretty healthy. Now, keep in mind, with all of these figures, they're being compared year over year, which means that they're being compared to last year at this time when consoles like the Xbox Series X and S were not available, and things like Game Pass, while they were starting to come into their own, we're still missing things like EA Play and some other items. So just keep in mind that it's comparing it to last year at this time, not last quarter. So Microsoft reported gaming revenue of $3.53 billion for the quarter, and that is up 50% year over year. Just nearly, well, it is exactly $3.5 billion. I almost said nearly $4 billion in revenue, but $3.5 billion, and that's on a quarterly basis. That's not an annualized basis. That's on a quarterly basis. Xbox content and services revenue, which is really big for Microsoft, was up 34%, or was at $739 million. Microsoft says that this was driven by strong software sales and Game Pass growth, which is always a positive sign for Microsoft. The most eye-popping number here is that the Xbox hardware revenue was up 232% year over year. And it's real obvious why that is such a massive increase. When you compare it to Xbox One sales at the end of a generation, it's only going to get bigger. It'll be interesting to see what that figure is in Q3, which is July, August, and September, because that would be the very, very end of the Xbox One generation. And so that'll be interesting to watch. I would imagine another huge number there. Microsoft also noted that they continue to push Game Pass as their main entry point into the Xbox ecosystem. No surprise there, Microsoft wants everybody into Game Pass, and it's a really seamless experience now, especially on Android, and once they get iOS and cloud gaming running up in the browser, it'll be even easier. Now, jumping into the earnings call, which always happens after they do their earnings release, they announced some additional information. To no surprise at all, they said demand is higher than expected for the series, or demand is higher than supply for the Xbox Series X and S consoles. No shocker there. You still can't get these things readily available yet. Microsoft is still trying to fill the channels with them, and they're selling out instantly, which really tells you that those revenue figures probably could have been a lot higher if Microsoft could have just gotten enough consoles onto store shelves. It continues to be a problem. Microsoft, as we all know, is not alone in this. Sony also reported the same issues, not to mention the entire industry is reporting challenges with just getting their chips and components and devices onto store shelves. Good luck if you're trying to buy a GPU. Exact same thing. They also said Minecraft monthly active users is now up to 140 million. That is up 30% year over year. That means 140 million people are playing Minecraft in some flavor every single month. The other thing, too, that Microsoft pointed out is that games, they said specifically, games are evolving into a metaverse economics, and Microsoft is now building new tools for these creators. What they were talking about here is more of like the Minecraft model, where there's a shop and sort of an economy inside of Xbox. And so that's a really big deal, because then Microsoft can control and cultivate that experience, and they're trying to replicate that style success with other games, but Minecraft being sort of the crown jewel because it's just done exceptionally well and continues to be one of Microsoft's best acquisitions to date. Not that Bethesda wasn't good, but we haven't seen Bethesda play out yet. They said also Xbox growth is being driven on and off consoles. That's not all that surprising. I mean, considering how much Microsoft is pushing Game Pass, that is how they are beginning to maneuver the new gaming economy, if you will, with this metaverse, with cloud gaming available in so many different locales and everything else that is going on. Also, jumping back to Minecraft, they also said Minecraft creators have made 300 million from more than 1 billion downloads of mods. What that means is that jumps back into that sort of metaverse economy, meaning that developers or creative folks building assets inside of the games are actually making like real money. Like real money is being made out. And that is an economy and a model that Microsoft is trying to replicate and is going to continue to pursue. So that kind of brings into like a strategy approach. If you think that Microsoft wants to build these universe of games, such as Minecraft, that might sort of dovetail into their potential acquisition strategy going forward. Now, you can't read too much into this, this. They're still going to continue to buy FPS titles and that. But what they are truly looking for is, what is Minecraft? Okay, Minecraft is a metaverse. How do we get more of those into the Xbox world? Because it's proving to be, one, a very long-tailed economy, a big revenue gain for Microsoft, and is very sticky. If you have 140 million people playing every single month, that is a great title for the Xbox universe. So, on to the numbers we didn't get, which we kind of knew that some of this was coming. First off, we did not get console sales figures. We knew that was probably going to be it. Microsoft is continuing to push the narrative that, hey, we want to focus on the Game Pass, and that we want to be the defining metric for Xbox. And again, I do understand and agree, because Microsoft looks at that as the future. That's probably a better true health, maybe, for the long-tailed style of the brand or something like that. But it would still be really nice to know the console sales. They didn't even give us like sales breakdown between Series X and Series S, because initially, and I still believe this, that Series X sales are going to be way ahead of potentially Series S. Even though the Series S is a much better value proposition, I think people who are still trying to get these consoles are going to be going for the Series X. Now, that narrative or theory kind of goes out the window a little bit, because right now it's my understanding that people are just buying whatever they can get their hands on. They see a Series S, they're going to buy it. So that breakdown of sales is eventually, in my opinion, going to shift to Series S will be the long-tailed winner. We're talking over the next 7 years, but for now, I would expect that the Series X is probably outselling it, mostly because Microsoft knows that anything that they produce is going to be sold. The other number that we disappointingly did not get was Game Pass subscribers. We didn't get a number we were hoping for. It's my understanding that somewhere around 22 to 23-ish million is what I've heard from people who are vaguely familiar with what is going on here. Don't take that for granted or as definitive fact yet, because Microsoft did not come out and say it, and so it's hard to understand at what point in time that figure was accurate. It continues to grow, and it continues to be a spot of emphasis for Microsoft, and we know that going the long term, but it would be really nice to actually have some actual concrete figures. Now, Microsoft does this intentionally, and this is me speculating here a little bit. They had incredible numbers for gaming revenue, up to 232% on hardware, and I suspect that Microsoft might be holding that figure back for the next quarter, when maybe they don't think things will be as good on a percentage basis. They're still, I believe, going to sell every single console that they make, but maybe they're trying to hold it back so then they have a different point of emphasis then. It's not something I agree with, because this is an investor's relation document and conversation, and if you're trying to explain that, hey, Game Pass is the future of the brand, why aren't you being explicitly clear about the growth in Game Pass? So that being said, the final note here is Microsoft did not give any additional guidance, by the way, of when the Xbox Series S and S consoles would be available. So last we heard was late spring-ish, but we don't have an exact timeline yet of when Microsoft thinks that constraint will truly kind of relax, and then you'll be able to go and buy a console whenever you want. So those are the numbers that came out of Microsoft this week, and they are, by all accounts, exceptional numbers. Microsoft is continuing to show that, hey, they are making good investments. They talked about how Bethesda is working out well, and putting those titles into Game Pass has shown some positive initial signs. And so as long as that narrative keeps playing out that way, that, hey, we add better titles to Game Pass, more people are going to play it, you can see them being more aggressive there. Microsoft has, at the time of the end of Q3, which we would consider Q1 by a calendar year, they had about $125 billion in the bank. So they definitely have a lot of cash on hand. That is not a question in any capacity. And we know that they appeared to have tried to buy Discord this quarter, but they did not, with at least per our understanding, they were not able to close that acquisition. It looks like Discord is going to be going public. So all that being said, Xbox continues to be in a really healthy place. It looks like, the initial signs that we're seeing now is the Game Pass is looking really positive. Hardware sales are looking really positive. And so Microsoft has a lot of momentum in the gaming space. Now, I've mentioned multiple times here that it's been impressive how Microsoft has done such a good job talking and keeping Xbox in the headlines. Either that's just with new hardware at the consoles launched last year, bringing Game Pass to either different endpoints like iOS or the browser, adding like Sony titles like MLB The Show, or Sony Studios titles, MLB The Show, to Game Pass, and making Game Pass a better value with each iterative update by adding more titles to it. The question becomes is, how is Microsoft going to keep that momentum? We're not quite sure what's happening in the PC space, like the PC gaming space. Remember, that's another vertical that Microsoft has under the quote unquote Xbox umbrella. I know most people think Xbox console, but Xbox is gaming, and there's just consoles that live inside that gaming umbrella. So there's still a lot we still don't know about Xbox. Hopefully we'll get some more definitive numbers from Microsoft here in the near future, but the TLDR is that things are looking good. And if you want to be knowing what's looking good here in the future, make sure to keep it subscribed here, because the only BS on this channel is me.